Good afternoon. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule today to join us for the Best Starts for Kids Basic Needs Resource Brokering. My name is Michelle Sarju, and I'm the Program Manager for the Community-Based Parenting and Peer Support Strategy. I will be your facilitator for the webinar today. Just one thing to note, the webinar is being recorded, so for those of you on the phone, you will be able to view it later. On your screen, I'm just going to briefly go over the agenda. I'm going to do a high-level BSK overview today. I'm going to talk about the Equity and Social Justice Initiative of King County Best Starts for Kids. I'm going to give you a general overview of the Community-Based Parenting and Peer Supports BSK strategy. I will have a colleague joining later in the presentation to talk about data and evaluation. And then at the end, we'll talk about ways to stay connected and additional resources. We will have questions at the end of this presentation. So for those of you on the phone, you are currently muted and you will be unmuted so that you can participate in the question and answer session. Okay, now I'm unmuted again. Okay, all right. Next slide. So the vision for BSK is we want to see more babies born healthy, more kids thriving, and more young people growing up to be happy, healthy, successful adults. It's a simple vision, but it's the most comprehensive approach to child development in the nation. King County is the first county to attempt this initiative. How we do it? We do it through 4 strategies: promotion, prevention, early intervention, policy, and systems change. Promotion begins before birth. Basically, what we're trying to do with promotion is increase the positive things for kids and families through resources, positive relationship development, and other opportunities as needed. For prevention, the goal is to prevent things like chronic and toxic stress, helping families create safe environments, or helping them with insufficient opportunities or resources. Intervene early, we are doing this through an early intervention strategy, which in the future will have RFPs that will be released. But essentially, basically what we're trying to do with this strategy is that when things arise, we want to get children and families help and support early. We want to provide the resources needed as soon as possible. And then policy and systems change. We believe that direct services are crucial and that there needs to be cross-system coordination so that the whole child is served. The Best Starts structure, 50% of the BSK levy is going to go to investing early. That's the prenatal to 5. 35% will go to sustaining the gain, which is 5 to 24. 5% of the levy investment is for data and evaluation, and then 10% is for supporting healthy communities. This slide has a lot of information, but just briefly to cover, the investing early strategy is to increase the promotive and protective factors so that children can obtain healthy development and well-being and reduce risk factors. As you all know, the child's first year of life is a unique window of opportunity to support lifelong health and well-being. What we know is that 90% of brain development happens in the first 5 years. Equity and social justice are a very important component of Best Starts for Kids initiative. Best Starts recognizes that there are persistent inequities that exist, especially by race and place, and that in many cases, these things are getting worse and threatening the collective prosperity of families in our county. We recognize that racial disparities and disproportionality exist due to historical, structural, and intentional policy making that has excluded people of color from opportunities and wealth accumulation. We also recognize that without a conscious effort, the way things are done, government policies have the impact of perpetuating those inequities. By place, we mean where you live, and that includes your zip code. What we know is that where you live has a direct impact on your health and access to opportunities. King County is a very geographically diverse place, and we recognize that there are both urban and suburban areas that are underserved. And we also recognize that there are pockets of need in areas that people perceive to be affluent. So we want to be equitable through this equity and social justice initiative. How does equity influence our decision making? Best starts is leading with race and acknowledging that regional need can vary. We want to say up front that this is a journey where we will be continuously learning and improving. And we'd like to hear from you any feedback and insights you have from your experience in BSK. In the meantime, we want everyone to feel that they can apply for BSK funding that they are qualified for, and we encourage applications from every part of the county. We want to invest in organizations that are reflective of and embedded in the communities they serve. A couple of things we're doing to promote equity. We're trying to make applications more accessible. We're trying to level the playing field by providing technical assistance, which I will talk about later in the presentation. If you are awarded BSK funding, we see the contracting process as an opportunity for collaboration with you to develop a program that you can succeed and provide resources to your community. We are encouraging a different approach to evaluation, and we'll talk more about that later in the presentation. So the strategy that I am working with is the community-based parenting and peer support strategy, which includes basic needs, resource brokering, kaleidoscope plan learn, and general parenting. The goal is to provide community-based ways to decrease isolation, increase connection to community, and improve access to geographically obtainable supports. We will accomplish this through the increasing supply of basic necessities and care items that children need, through facilitated play and learn groups, and through general parenting, which will provide peer supports and information about healthy child development. Today, we're just going to cover the basic needs resource brokering strategy. We're defining resource brokering as those things, necessities, that young children and their families need to support healthy growth and development, including, but not limited to, diapers, cribs, car seats, formula, food, and clothing. We recognize that traditionally, basic needs are generally defined as food, shelter, and clothing, but can also include things like sanitation, education, and healthcare. For this RFP, however, we are referring to the basic needs resource brokering activity. And the basic needs resource brokering are getting those items that are listed on this slide. We would like agencies who have relationships or agreements with large entities that have the ability to donate or provide at significant discounts the items listed above. During community conversations, which occurred in 2015, we heard from the community regarding this basic needs resource brokering activity, which has existed in King County since the early 1990s. All right, so our funding priorities are, we will prioritize organizations that serve communities of color, low-income communities, limited English-speaking communities, those contending with disparities or disproportionalities. We also will prioritize organizations that are connected to and embedded in the community served. This includes employing staff and leadership that are representative of those communities, and also organizations that use regular processes for obtaining family and community feedback. For the Basic Needs Resource Brokering Funding Strategy, the funds available are $350,000 annually. I would like to qualify that by saying that our budget is created and presented by the King County Council in a biennium process. So as long as the county resource dollars do not decline, the funding amount for the next 3 years will be $350,000. The contract period for this will be January 31st through December 31st, 2018. Funding request limits: you are eligible to apply for any amount between $10,000 and $125,000 per proposal. We anticipate the number of awards to be between 3 and 6 awards. Within the BSK strategy, we have both headline indicators and secondary indicators. The headlines indicators for the Basic Needs Resource Brokering are children who are flourishing and resilient, lowering the rate of child abuse or neglect. Our secondary indicators are family supports and healthy children. So listed here are some important dates. I would like to highlight 2 very important dates. The first, the final day to ask questions, is 11/17/2017, and all proposals or responses are due on Tuesday, November 21st at 2 p.m. Please ensure that you have your applications submitted by that time, as we are not able to accept late applications. One thing to note on this timeline review is that I have interviews with applicants, and that's only if necessary. The rating criteria. So applications will be assessed based on rating criteria, which is included in the RFP. But to highlight a couple of things, the criteria includes experience coordinating all aspects of securing basic needs resources. As I stated earlier, we encourage organizations who already have relationships with entities that can provide some of those things listed to apply. The other rating criteria is demonstration of collaboration with community-based organizations to distribute those basic needs resources to families. Refer to the rating criteria in developing your proposal. All eligible proposals will be reviewed and scored by a panel, which includes community members, subject matter experts, King County staff, as well as council staff members. If you are not awarded dollars and you would like to appeal, you have 4 days to do so after funding notices have been released. See the RFP for the full process. Okay, for the budget, all applicants must submit a budget with their proposal. You should plan to include up to 10% of your cost to go towards evaluation. If necessary, please include estimated costs to participate in BSK required trainings. Administrative costs should not exceed 12% of your budget. Some tips to keep in mind. Please be sure to download the budget template from the procurement website. The template auto-calculates, so please do not alter the formulas. Now, we're going to transition to talking about data and evaluation, and my colleague Sarah J. will be presenting, so give us a moment while we switch places.
Hello everyone, thanks for having me join the webinar today. I'm just going to speak briefly about data and evaluation with regards to applying for this RFP, as well as what funded organizations can expect from BSK with our evaluation plan. So I'll start by introducing the three guiding principles of our data and evaluation team, which are partnership, collaboration, and accessibility. We want to work closely with our community partners and funded organizations to have a meaningful and robust evaluation, as well as to make our data available to you and to understand the information that you already have about communities. So as far as the application goes, we encourage you to consider ways that you can use data to tell your story. This could be the story about the services that you provide, the families that you help, and the needs and strengths in your community. In the RFP, you will find a list of some resources of data that King County is making available that are relevant to the indicators and family and community health here in King County. But that's not the only source of information that can be useful for your proposal. You probably already have access to lots of great information about your program and your community that can help you make a really convincing proposal for this RFP. So think about stories that you might already have about program or client successes. Think about information that you have about how your organization incorporates and reflects the community that you serve, and any other good program results that you might have. So we want to make that data available so that it's accessible to all who are interested in using it, but it's far from the only data that can be helpful in putting together your proposal. And we don't just value those numbers that we put out there, but the stories that you can share from your own work as well are just as important source of data for your proposal. And will have a big impact on the reviewers when they can understand your story that way as well. So as far as evaluation goes, you're not required to put an evaluation plan into the proposal, just that funding for evaluation. We will be working with all funded organizations on an evaluation plan, and we ask that you include the 10% of the budget because we know that making that plan with us and collecting the data that we agree to collect does take time and resources. So when you put that in the budget, it's an acknowledgement that you're willing to participate in that way. All funded organizations will work with us to develop performance measurements so that we can see how we're doing with your work and with BSK as a whole. And we'll develop those together in partnership. And there may be some additional higher levels of evaluation for programs that are doing new and innovative work that we want to track in that way as well. So that's a little bit about what you can expect if you're funded, but at this stage of the game of putting together your proposal, the most important thing to know is that you don't need to have an evaluation plan. Just include that money in the budget to show that you know this will be part of our work together. All right, I'm going to hand it back to Michelle.
Thank you, Sarah J. All right, so on this slide, we would like to encourage you to stay connected. And there are a number of ways to receive information. We have a blog, and for those of you on the phone, the address is www.beststartsblog.com. There are also other ways to stay connected. We have community events, which are generally announced through the blog. You can also visit the King County website for more information about the blog. And you can sign up on Twitter to follow the latest happenings with BSK. So on this particular slide for people on the phone, it lists the King County website, it lists the Best Starts blog address, and it lists the Twitter handle. I'm not going to read them because it'll take too long, but once the recording of this webinar is put up on the blog, you will be able to view this slide. So additional resources. There will be one more bidders conference, which will happen at the Shoreline Library on Tuesday, October 31st from 2:30 to 3:30. The address is 345 Northeast 175th Street in Shoreline. The Shoreline Library is a King County library, so you can also Google King County libraries and it will give you that location. If you have contract questions, you can email the contracts office. Chris DeAbro's contact information is listed on this particular slide for those of you who are on the phone. You also have access to technical assistance, which I will talk about in a moment, if you feel like your organization needs or wants support with proposal development. In your RFP, there is a checklist, and I encourage you to use that checklist to make sure your proposal is eligible for review. It includes things like no larger than Arial 12-point font, no more than 5 pages, and 1-inch single-spaced 1-inch margins, and then again, don't forget to include your cover sheet. Regarding technical assistance, all applicants are welcome to seek technical assistance for the following things: to determine your eligibility to apply for this RFP, to have one of the consultants, which I will review in a moment, explain the application process and the requirements. You can also have the consultant edit and proofread your application, including your budget. And you can have the consultant help you flesh out your ideas and use data to tell your story. Listed here are our technical assistance providers. For those of you on the phone, I'm going to state the name of the organization, but also know that full information will be on the recorded webinar, which will be uploaded to the BSK blog. The first TA provider is ALR, Grant Writing Services. The second is Bull Consulting. The third is Emerging Design. Then we have the Nonprofit Assistance Center. We also have RHL Consulting and Varenti Consulting. For your reference, this particular slide is the third to the last slide in the webinar PowerPoint presentation. So now at this time, we will take questions. For those of you on the phone, we're going to unmute you. And I'm looking in the chat box.
Hey there, this is Chris Diabro. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I just was chiming in to say if applicants can email the cpress-bsk@kingcounty.gov email. I typed it into the chat box. Helps me organize and keep the RFP information separate from all the other emails I get and get back to you a lot quicker. So that would be very helpful. It's in the chat box. It's also listed in the RFP about 5 to 10 times, so you'll find it pretty easily.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I think you were initially listed before the TA providers were selected, so thank you for catching that.
Yeah, no problem.
Are there other questions from our participants? If you're on the phone, you also have to unmute yourself because we are not able to hear you if you have yourself on mute. So you're unmuted on our end on the slide on the Skype presentation, but you need to unmute yourself. Does someone have a question? I see that somebody has unmuted themselves. You all should be unmuted now in case you are trying to speak. I hear somebody typing, I think. Okay, well, if you don't have any questions, are there any comments? Are there any comments? So someone is typing a message. We have one question coming. This is the awkward moment in the webinar presentation where you're waiting for people to either say something or type something. Okay, so how come I can't see her message? Okay. Is it device control? She didn't ask the question. Okay. All right. Well, if there are no questions or no comments, that is all we have for you today. Again, this webinar has been recorded and it will be uploaded to the, is it the Best Starts for Kids blog? It will be uploaded to the Best Starts for Kids blog in a couple of days, so you will be able to review it at a later date if you're on the phone and not a participant in the Skype webinar.